Welcome to the Rock Music Alliance interview sessions. I'm your host, Cole Coleman, along with keyboardist Claudio Pesavento from Mahogany Rush and the Chris Squire Band. On our show today, she's the guitar player and one of the original members of Led Zeppelin tribute band Zepparella. But she's also a solo artist and has been a guitar teacher, a counselor at rock and roll fantasy camp, and an airline pilot. I can't wait to hear about that story. Welcome to our show, Gretchen Menn.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Gretchen, what's the latest news from your solo world? Any solo releases that you're working on, or guest appearances, collaborations?
Yes, a lot of stuff going on. We just finished tracking a string quartet and woodwind trio for my next Dante-themed album. So that's well underway. I still have to lay down guitar tracks and kind of now sort out all of the tracks I have of the live instruments, the live classical instruments. So that's in the works. I also found out that the concerto that I performed last year with the Utah Symphony, it was one written by Stephen Mackey, who's one of my heroes. And he had mentioned something about writing a guitar concerto for me. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. It also sounds like something that sounds good, but probably won't happen. And next thing I knew, it did get programmed, and we performed it last April at the Utah Symphony, conducted by David Robertson. It's a 5-movement guitar concerto that includes both classical and electric guitar and all sorts of crazy stuff I have to do. And I found out it's getting programmed again next year. So it's really, really exciting. I mean, getting to perform, a brand new piece of music written by one of my heroes with the Utah Symphony. And they were amazing last time, conducted by David Robertson, who's just, a sublime conductor and human being, is really, really exciting. And it's going to be less scary this time because I've done it once before. So I know that I have done it. So I can really dig in, minus some of the, psychological anxieties that we go through when preparing for a big performance. So I have that coming up too.
Yeah, I can imagine it would just be much more comfortable having already done it, so you can more enjoy the performance now.
Yeah. And also it's like I got all the time in the world to kind of relearn something that I already had committed to memory. So it's much easier to dust something off than to learn it for the first time.
Yeah. I read where you were working on an album of compositions primarily for solo guitar. Is that still in the works?
It is. I feel like I'm just always like a fumbling juggler. Right now, actually yesterday I just turned in a guest solo. Today I'm working on another collaboration that I don't think I'm yet able to talk about, but I'm really excited because it involves another one of my heroes if it comes to fruition. So yes, I am still, I have quite a bit of it done and ready to go, and it's just a question of like recommitting myself to it when my schedule allows.
I got it. Can I take a couple of guesses on that partnership, on that collaboration?
Sure.
Let's see. Okay.
Well, but I don't think I could tell you if you were right though.
Oh, okay. I was gonna watch for a review, but I was gonna say, Steve Morris.
Like I said, I don't think I can say anything yet.
Okay.
But when it's ready,
I got you.
We'll be making big blasts.
Jimi Hendrix.
Wouldn't that be a good one?
Jimi Hendrix?
He's back, gang. Would you tell us who is Kenny Hill, and how may he have helped you with some of your inspiration, I should say, for your solo guitar album?
Oh gosh. Okay, so Kenny Hill is an incredible luthier, and I was fortunate enough to be gifted one of his guitars. Every now and then, I feel like life will toss us something that we feel like is better than we deserve. And I ended up with this amazing instrument. And I knew it was made by Kenny Hill. I didn't know the man or anything like that. But a few years later, I was playing a show up in Felton near Santa Cruz. And at the merch table, this really cool guy with this gorgeous, like just bright white hair came up to the merch table and was asking me, he was like, "Are you classically trained?" Yeah, I guess he could tell from my left hand position, even though it was just in a Zepparella set. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's how I started." And then I think I went into the whole like, "Oh man, I wish I had more time for classical. I love it so much. I have this amazing instrument." And he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm a builder up here." And then I realized, wait a minute, Felton's a very small town. And I was like, "What's your name?" And he said, Kenny Hill. And I think I practically like leapt over the merch table and was like, oh my God, I'm such a fan of your instruments and everything. So we ended up chatting. I gave him a copy of my album, Abandon All Hope, that has his guitar, or the guitar of his featured pretty prominently on a few tracks. And he wrote to me that he enjoyed the album. And then over the pandemic, or right before the pandemic, he lent me his personal guitar. He had made himself a second guitar. And so he lent me his personal guitar. That's actually right there. The first one he built. It has these true temperament frets. And oh boy, it's magical. And it's been definitely a constant source of inspiration. I know someday I will have to give it back. But in the meantime, I played the concerto. That was the first movement of the concerto. And part of the fourth movement has the classical guitar. So I'm hoping he'll let me use it for 2026 and for the recording of the solo guitar album too.
That's amazing. That's amazing. He lent it to you. And I've seen photographs of the, what'd you call it? The tempered frets?
True temperament frets. Yeah.
True temperament
I didn't know anything about them. I'm the wrong person to ask lots of the geeky details, but Kenny Hill swore by them. I thought, if you haven't seen them, they're kind of like squiggly looking, and they're supposed to correct tiny little tuning imperfections across the fretboard. They're very intimidating to look at, but there's virtually no adjustment in playing.
Yeah. I was just going to ask.
You would think it'd be a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks crazy, but yeah, I know. But can you really hear the difference? For intonation.
It's really hard to tell, because instrument to instrument, there's so many other things that can affect that. But yeah, there's a sweetness of sound that's really nice. It's also a gorgeous instrument too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Hold on. Yeah? He said you can keep it.
Oh.
Nice. Yeah. Well, Gretchen, I came across a video online, the Gretchen Menn Trio, a tribute to Jeff Beck, a brush with the blues.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to know, what's that about, and will there be any more of it?
Oh, well, certainly. So my trio, we do play shows. I've often said I'm a terrible businesswoman. I've always been fortunate to be in bands with somebody who has a better business savvy than I do. And so when it comes to my own project, it's like, oh yeah, I have to stay on top of things in a way. But we do have some shows coming up. Interestingly, one, it's not open to the public, but it is connected with aviation, which was kind of a fun, connection to make. But we do have other shows coming up for sure. It's mostly original music, but we put in a couple select covers, and Jeff Beck's Brush with the Blues is one of my favorite ones to do. We actually have been playing that for a while, and we had a gig the night after he passed, and I knew I'd be able to play the song, but I told the guys in the band, I was like, one of you guys has to be ready to introduce this, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to speak about it. I managed to get the words out, but I think everybody has sort of the one hero for them that's kind of like the really big one when they pass, and that was mine.
Yeah, I can completely relate, especially right at the day after he died. That's I was thinking about Jeff for probably at least 3 or 4 days. Just a world without Jeff now.
Oh, how lucky we were to have lived when he was doing art,
Yeah.
Not very many of us get to say that, right?
I used to play Because We've Ended as Lovers, and I can't imagine playing that song the next day afterward. I probably would be shedding a tear at least, Yeah.
I
used to
don't
play all
remember
his
if I made
songs.
Yeah.
I used to play all his songs in the 80s with his drummer and his bass player. They have a music building. There's old building. It's a building all full of rehearsing places. And the drummer and the bass player, they had one room, and I was upstairs. And one time they called me, say, you want to come and jam? And I didn't know who they were. I didn't know they played with Jeff Beck. And they were,
Wow.
they play on the first albums that he did, Wire, what do you say, Wire?
Yeah,
Weird.
Wired. Yeah. It's a great album. Yeah.
Yeah, they play on that one. And I got to meet him also. Not such a nice. He smoked a lot of pot, obviously. That's happy.
I saw him live a few times, but I never got to meet him. The closest I came was I did a acoustic-oriented album long ago, and it was being mastered at Capitol Records in Hollywood. And on that particular day that I went to pick it up, a really amazing day, because I went in and I signed my name on the register, and the name right above mine was Joe Perry. And I'm like, oh, wow, this guy, he's here somewhere. And then I went inside to pick up my master, and I heard music downstairs, an orchestral thing going on, large Studio A. And the mastering engineer was, I can't remember his first name. His last name is Goknar. He's a Turkish fellow, really great guy. And he's all, here, come on downstairs and you can take a peek at a session. I'm sure, So we go downstairs and I take a peek through the window. Jeff Beck in the big Studio A with a full orchestra.
Wow.
And
was he doing Nessun Dorma?
I don't remember, he
what
was
year
standing,
is this?
Oh, long ago. This is like 2006. Yeah. But I looked through the window, and he's in the middle of the room, and the full orchestra, and there was a conductor off to his right, and they were playing, and it was just like, wow, this is amazing. But I just got to take a quick peek, and that was
That's
it.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I
be a
met him in
flat wall.
1983.
Oh,
Sorry?
yeah?
Yeah, 83 in New York. Well, I was living in New York, and, he was always hanging out at this place called the Lamplight. And every time I see him, he was smoking like he looked like he was stoned.
Well, Gretchen, you launched a terrific solo career some years back, and I'd like to remind our listeners and even introduce some of our newer listeners, of course, to that music. So let's take a sample listen to a track from your most, excuse me, a little frog in my throat after talking about Jeff. So let's take a sample listen to a track from your most recent released album, Abandon All Hope. Here's about a minute and a half of the song Hound of Hades on the Rock Music Alliance. That was Hound of Hades from Gretchen Menn's album, Abandon All Hope. I love the interplay of the electric guitar and violin in that song, and all on the album, the whole album, Who are the players on that album with you?
It's an amazing string quartet from Italy, actually. Initially, I had just imagined that I would have just violin on the record. The violinist is named Glauco Bertagnin, and he's from Italy. It was recorded at a studio in Rovigo with Ugo Bozzoni as the engineer. And I had done a number of tracks for Glauco. And when I had done there's a piece for solo violin in it called Rise. And at the end, he came out and his English is minimal and my Italian is minimal. Somehow we got across, he said, "This is really well written. I want you to write for my quartet." And I was like, I don't need to be asked twice. So I went home, I reimagined which pieces could have quartet on them. And then we had Let's see. The second violinist was Matteo Marzaro. The violist was Alessandro Pandolfi, and the cellist was Giordano Pegoraro. I think, I forgive my mispronunciations if I didn't do them justice, but a wonderful string quartet. And yeah, I was honored to have such wonderful musicians, and it made sense to have a Dante themed album recorded by Italian musicians in Italy.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Well, turning to Zepparella, some sources say Zepparella formed in 2005 and some sources say 2004. Which was it?
I'm the worst one to ask. I feel like it was, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sorry. One of the two is probably correct.
Okay.
It was my second band. I didn't know anything when I joined it. I was so green that to this day, every time our singer Anna introduces Clementine and we're giving her a little moment on stage, I always look back and I'm like, I can't believe she took a chance on me. I was utterly unqualified to play in the band. I was just at the beginning. Like truly, I had not been, I didn't know how anything worked. I was brand new to it all. And I think she just saw that I had like the self-discipline and the desire to get it right. And I'm forever grateful to her for giving me a chance when she was a pro and I was so green.
Right out of school, yeah. Well, in that case, we'll go with 2005. If you do a search on it, that's what comes up like first, you know. But so I want to mention in that case for everybody listening, this is the 20th anniversary of Zepparella. Or
I know,
if you,
it's crazy.
Or
but
if you
honestly,
want, it's 2000, or it's the 21st, whichever source you want to go with. You know, so congratulations on that.
You know, it's funny because like I know like Clementine's super proud of it. It's a little bit more angsty for me, to be honest. I'm super proud of how good like my bandmates are. I love our fans and everything. But you know, if you were to tell somebody like, "Hey, you're gonna play in a tribute band for 20 years," you'd be like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna go jump off a bridge, really?" You know. Only through time, you know, so there is a part of me that's kind of like, ooh, you know, like every time. And so it's like, yes, on one hand, I am really proud of it. There's something real to be said about having such wonderful music and such wonderful bandmates and such wonderful support that you get to do something that long. And at the same time, you know, it does bring up questions of like, okay, you know, wow, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of my life, you know? And I think where I sort of land with it all is it's my super fun day job. You know, it's like it allows me to get to play music, which is never the same one night to the next. Not to say that we just improvise willy-nilly over everything, but to do Zeppelin properly, you have to be doing some improvisation. Right? I mean, you would totally neglect a huge part of the spirit of it otherwise. And so there is the ability to have a wide spectrum of music, room to improvise and room to grow. And there's something really wonderful about that. And man, I swear the longer I am a musician, the longer I'm alive, the more you realize that being surrounded by wonderful people is an incredible gift. You know, and sometimes that's the difference between somebody who's an amazing musician who's trapped in their practice studio and a musician who gets to really be out there doing things. It's not necessarily one individual's talent. It's can you get a group of people together for long enough and stay on the same page for long enough that you can build something together.
That's very, very true. Yeah, very true. Yeah. So
I saw you guys. Oh, sorry.
No,
I
go
saw
ahead.
you guys at the. I saw you guys at the Viper Room. No, I saw you girls at the Viper Room. You're a different bass player. Now it's Holly. My friend Holly is playing bass now.
She's everybody's friend, Holly. We love Holly so much.
Yeah, she's cool. So yeah, when I saw you, I think was it 2011 maybe or 2012. I don't remember. That's great.
Well, since we're talking about Zepparella then, so what's the latest news from Zepparella? Any show dates coming up or tour for the year?
We're so busy all the time. Yeah, I got shows Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week, and then next week we're all over the place. Like we were just in South Dakota and Omaha and oh my gosh, where was the other place? I don't know. We were East Coast, we were Midwest. This week we have some shows that are like, you know, everywhere from Lake Tahoe, Marin, and then next week we're in Telluride. So we're lucky to be as busy as we are. I have to put my out dates on the calendar so I can have time for my original music and things like that. So we try to balance, you know, staying busy with also, we all have original projects, you know, so to not let, you know, the fun of playing Led Zeppelin take too much time away from our ability to create and grow as original musicians as well.
Yeah, it's a careful balance. Yeah.
It is. I know.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, you got to pay for groceries and rent and such, you know, and I'm well aware that the type of music I like to write is never going to be like big commercially. That's fine. Like I wouldn't write instrumental compositions if my goal was to sell as many albums as possible. But nevertheless, it does take time and a lot of dedication to work the details and to polish them the best you can. So.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, true. You know, long ago, I used to play, of course, in cover bands and also with trying to do original music. And after a while, I was just worn out. I could never find really enough time to really work on original music to the extent that it really needed to be done. Yeah. And yet at the same time, when you're working on original music, you know, there's no money coming in hardly, you know. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. So what were you doing right before Zepparella, and what led up to you joining the band?
So my, let's see, right before, so my first band ever, where I met Clementine, was an AC/DC tribute band called AC/DC. And that was like basically when I was right out of school. And around the same time, I had decided to go to flight school. My undergraduate degree is in music. I graduated a year early only because I found out that I was such a geek in high school that all these advanced placement classes I just took because that was just the class they put me in, and I didn't think much of it, that I had amassed a year of college credit. So when I went to college and they were like, hey, you have a year of credit, do you want to graduate a year early? You know, I'm looking at how much debt I'm going into. I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. I'd like to save a year of college, you know, tuition. But then as I'm graduating with a degree in music, realizing, okay, I know musicians, and most of them, not all, have a lot of bad things to say about being a musician, to the point where sometimes you wonder, why are you even doing this? Like, you are so mad at everybody. Like, you're so jaded. Like, you hate everybody, and you hate the gigs, and you hate the industry. And I thought, okay, how do I protect my love of music while insulating myself from some of the things about the industry that are very real? And I thought, if I can find a way to support myself, to pay my rent, to pay for groceries, to pay off my debts from education, then maybe I can choose to do music in a way that allows me to continue to love it the way I love it right now. And so I ended up I had taken a few flight lessons very capriciously when I was in school because the local airport offered discounts for college students. I couldn't do it seriously because I was a college student. Like, who has less money, right? So I think I had used like some money I'd gotten for my birthday to do it. And it was fun. But once I realized I was going to graduate early, I had this crisis of like, oh my God, like it sounds great to graduate early until you realize that you have at least a year less education and experience and age, you know, to figure out what you want to do with your life. And so that's why I thought, okay, if I go to flight school, it means that in the same amount of time, for about the same amount of money as I was planning, I'll have this other career path that I could do. You know, I can teach flying, and that's interesting. At least you're not, you know, beholden to the service industry as I was for college jobs, which is very soul draining. The people who can wait tables or work in the service industry and have anything left to give anything, I have nothing but the most respect for, because it is really hard to do that kind of work. And that's why I thought, okay, I'll do something that's different enough from music, but still engages my brain in a way such that I'm not coming home just like exhausted by having to deal with like angry customers. So I went to flight school. I got my licenses. I started flight instructing, and I did have a brief stint, about a year at the Airlines, just because I happened to be, offered a really good job at a time where they needed people with high multi-engine time, and I had high multi-engine time.
That's just amazing, So are we talking about jet aircraft?
I did, yeah. I flew the Embraer 145 and 135 regional jets. They were
amazing.
They're nice. Are you a pilot?
No, but it's again,
your planes, yeah.
It's funny. When I was a kid growing up, my
only when his marks.
Flying was my first choice when I was a kid growing up, and until I found music. When I found music, it just absorbed me into it, and but until then, I was looking at going to flight school and everything.
Yeah. It's great fun, and really the only reason I left was because when you're actually at an airline, you get to know your crew pretty well, meaning like you're sitting next to the same guy for or I guess I had one female captain. You're sitting next to the same person for sometimes the better part of a month. And so you get to kind of know, like, how'd you get here, all of that. And I realized that every other pilot I talked to loved flying the way I loved music. And I was always like bringing my guitar with me and like hurrying off to the hotel. I never like went out with the crew, like to the bars or anything like that, or to hang. Or I was always like, let me get back to my room as soon as I can so I can play guitar. And when that really, like a couple instances put that in sharp focus for me, and I realized not only am I not pursuing what I really want to be doing, I'm planning to fail by being here, right? I'm planning to fail at what I love most while occupying someone else's dream, because the plane I was flying was a gorgeous plane. It was a great gig. It was as good of an entry level gig as you could get. And for me, I just wanted to be playing guitar. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to step out and allow the right person to have their dream. And if I've, got to still make money doing other things, no problem. I love flight instructing. I mean, there's something really nice about working one-on-one with each individual student. Each person learns differently. Each student is their own unique puzzle. And there's something really fun about helping somebody achieve a goal or a dream or overcome a fear, which are like the main reasons people are taking flight lessons.
Steve Morse is a pilot.
I know. Yeah. Same with B.B. King and Dick Dale. Jeff Beck took some flight lessons too. He soloed, but he did not get his private pilot's license.
I guess he would rather work on cars. But
he definitely loved his hot rods, right?
Yeah, but it is amazing how many musicians are pilots. I didn't realize that was a kind of a thing. But including quite a few people. I wonder if Steve Vai is a pilot.
I don't think Steve Vai is. I think Mark Knopfler is. I think David Gilmour might be. I know Dick Dale. He was really big into flying, and definitely Steve Morse as well. Amazing.
I never would have guessed Dick Dale. But yeah.
Steve Morse was flying in the 70s already. He started early.
Yeah. Did you ever have an inkling towards flying, Claudio?
No, I asked people. A lot of people like him. I met him many times, and I said, "Are you still flying?" I said, "Yeah, I still flying." Even he was playing,
Yeah.
Amazing. I saw that in 2017, talking about Steve Vai, that Steve Vai performed with Zepparella at the Malibu Guitar Festival. How did that come about?
Well, we were playing the Malibu Guitar Festival, and I think Steve Vai was too. I don't know who set that up, but I think if you're Steve Vai, like, you just basically let somebody know if you're going to show up and play with them. No, it sounds like it was the most scary, most high pressure thing, but he is such a lovely person, and he's such a generous performer. And so everybody who imagines that trading licks with Steve Vai is going to be like the scene at a Crossroads, he and Paul Gilbert's the same way. When you get a chance to play with them, and of course, every single bit of negative self-talk, you're trying to just keep that under control in your own head, being like, oh my God, like, I don't even feel like, like I am so not worthy of this, and now this is what I got to do. But what really great musicians I have found do is they meet you and you have a dialogue with them where it isn't about one-upsmanship. It's about something happening in that moment, in that communication. So it wasn't like Steve Vai was trading solos with me in a way to try to make me look as like small as possible next to him, which, let's be clear, in a heartbeat, he could do that if he wanted to, and he didn't. And the level of kindness I felt from that, the level of appreciation and the level of respect of being like, you know what, that is a really cool and generous way to be. So for a lot of reasons, I would say Steve Vai is an incredible figure of like musical diplomacy. Like he brings so much good and has continued to for so long.
A lot of jazz musicians are like that.
Yeah, are they?
They like to jam, and if you're there, like I was playing at this jazz club and Chick Corea show up. Mm-hmm. He asked my friend, I don't speak English then, but he asked, hey, you don't mind if I play your piano? And I say,
please, bless my piano.
then he opened the piano, a Fender Rose, and he started to calibrate it. He started to work on the keys because they were stiff. So he tried to calibrate it, and then I ended up playing Moog. He was playing piano, I was playing Moog. It was fun.
Wow.
Well, it's an amazing perspective you have on that, Gretchen, because, it's like you say, being such an amazing player that Vai is, it's great that he can show up and literally just to contribute to the moment.
And he was so cool. This is another thing that made me realize why Vai is Vai. First, he wanted to rehearse. Now, granted, we know these Led Zeppelin songs very well. He could have just jumped in and done anything and we would have had his back and we would have been able to navigate whatever, right? So we knew these songs well. But he wanted to rehearse, which I was like, well, that's really cool. Even if it's to check up on us, how cool is it that he wants every time he's on stage, he's going to take his evening that he could be doing any other incredibly cool thing that Steve Vai might be able to do. And he's going to show up to make sure that when he gets on stage, it's as good as possible. How cool is that? And then I had prepared to basically be like, hey, Steve, do you just want to plug into my rig? I can just vanish for this if you want. And he was like, absolutely not. And I was like, why don't you just take the solo? He's like, no, absolutely not. We're going to trade solos and everything. So he didn't let me step too far into the shadows, much as I tried. And then before the gig, and this I thought was the coolest thing, he wanted to sit down and talk through the structure of each song. Anybody who's never really played Led Zeppelin is inclined to underestimate how tricky the structures can be. They hear, oh, that riff is probably not difficult to play, and they don't realize that that's not what makes Led Zeppelin difficult. He wanted to sit down and he talked through the structure of every single part of the songs he was going to play with us. And I just thought, again, how cool is he? It's like it's this little gig for him sitting in with the Led Zeppelin tribute band, and he wants to make sure he has it right. I mean, he just never rests on his laurels.
Between you and me, any guy would like to play with Zepparella.
Oh,
yeah.
We're pretty generous. We tend to let people sit in quite often, as long as we can justify it. They either have to be a legend or have or sharing the stage with us. We don't let it be like Led Zeppelin karaoke. Otherwise, I think our audience might kind of tire of that. But let's just be clear, we've definitely been lucky to have some wonderful people sit in, and other people have standing invitations.
Right. Well, let's pause here for a quick word from our sponsor. And when we come back, we're going to ask Gretchen a little about her early days and going to earn her degree in college. And we'll be right back. Attention guitar players, the Thimble Slide allows you to slide and fret, freeing your slide finger. The Thimble Slide is a mini guitar slide designed to be worn on the tip of your finger, about halfway down your fingernail. When worn there, you can still bend your finger, and most importantly, it's allowing enough of your fingertip through so you can still press the guitar strings. With its patented shape, you can slide and fret while wearing the Thimble Slide. Visit thimbleslide.com. That's thimbleslide.com.
guitarist.com.
Hey, this is Bella Perron from the band Plush, and you're listening to Rock Music Alliance.
We're back with Gretchen Menn on the Rock Music Alliance. Gretchen, where were you born and raised, and what inspired you to become a guitar player?
I was born and raised in Palo Alto, California, and I got inspired to play guitar because I saw Eric Johnson. I think he inspired like a whole generation of us to play. It's funny, at least a lot of guitar players I know, he was one of the big ones. Yeah. And I mean, music was always something that was valued in my family. It was always kind of around. My parents believe in the arts and, having me and my sister, see theater, hear music, things like that. But it was when I got into guitar that my dad was like, honey, do you know that I kind of know about this? And that's when I was like, oh, right. Didn't you work at like a guitar magazine? At this point, he had left. But he had worked at Guitar Player magazine early on. And so he had this huge collection of music and he knew a lot of stuff. Like I remember one time coming home, like positively annoyed because I had seen an article in some like guitar magazine that was talking about Steve Morse, who at this point I didn't know. And all I knew is that the first sentence was something like, more aggressive than Eric Johnson, more musically spacious than Joe Satriani, more something or other than Steve Vai. And I was like, okay, you just compared dude to my three favorite guitar players. Who the heck is this guy? And I went to my dad like annoyed. And he was the one who's like, no. He's like, actually, Steve Morse is fantastic. And so he brought me to see a show. And after that, I was like, okay, I now have four favorite guitar players.
Yeah.
What year was that?
I don't know. It was in the 90s. Yeah. Something like
I wonder if he
late
was,
90s, maybe. Yeah.
I wonder if he did the interview where I was on with Frank Marino.
Oh, really? What year would it have been? My dad left in
83.
Could have been. It could have been. Yeah. It definitely could have been.
Yeah, it's interesting because all those four guitar players, they're all quite different, So
Yeah.
that's interesting as well. There's a lot of guitar players out there that sound very similar, but it's wonderful when somebody comes out and they're just like have such a unique approach or sound or style. And all those guys, Steve Morris, Eric Johnson, Joe Satriani, all those guys sound different. They're very different players,
Yeah.
And Eric was to me, it was a breath of fresh air when he came along because I remember like at that particular time period, I think everybody was trying to be their best Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then here comes a guy that is just wonderfully melodic and, high speed when he wants to be, though.
Yeah.
You got to listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan?
I was listening to him today, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great player. Oh, man. His attack is just.
Yeah. So in addition to your dad being editor-in-chief of Guitar Player magazine, I'm assuming he was a musician as well.
Well, not a professional. He's somebody who is really adept at kind of picking up an instrument and being able to get sounds out of it. If you hand him a guitar and turn on a backing track, he'll figure out what key it's in really well. He's got a really good ear. But no, he's never played professionally. He's a brilliant writer. He could have done anything he wanted to, but writing was his thing.
Yeah, that's cool, and it's very consuming. When you're a writer for a magazine like that, it takes your life.
Well, and I think part of why he's so good at journalism, of course, but music journalism is that he was I think a writer first, but studied music quite a bit. So he knew how to ask really good questions, but also like being a journalist, it's its own thing too, right? Being able to write well, being able to interview well, that's an art in and of itself. And it's a lot easier. It's easy to underestimate until you're in that position. Like I did an interview, Guitar Player magazine, current or current-ish Guitar Player magazine asked me to do an interview with Steve Morse. And so I was in the position of like coming up with questions. I'm like, oh my God, this is really hard. Like to be like, how do I ask something that's actually going to be open-ended enough that the person's going to be able to give me something I might not have thought to ask, but not be so vague as to have them be like, oh man, okay, here's this question again, right? It's hard.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's like when you're doing that sort of thing, it's like, oh my God, I know this person has been asked this 100 times, you know. But there are some things in almost every interview that you just got to ask, you know.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Which brings me to my next question.
Good.
which was
just to make you feel really self-conscious. No, I didn't mean anything like that.
I was very intrigued when I read your bio and the mention of that you demolished your mother's violin. With Pete Townsend-like vehemence at age 3.
We got to credit Jude Gold. You know, it's one of those things, writing a bio for yourself. When I sat down to write my bio, it was like 3 lines long. It was like, Gretchen Menn is an aspiring guitar player who's trying her best not to suck. You know, that's like the bio I write for myself. So Jude, who's a buddy of mine, he plays also with Jefferson Starship. He's an amazing guitar player, also an amazing journalist. I cashed in on a favor and I was like, could you please write my bio for me? I have no idea how to start. And so he took some stories from my childhood. And apparently, yes, there was a time when I think I was about 2 or 3 where my dad was, you know, was solo with the kids. And of course I needed to explore my mom's violin, and my permissive dad was like, yeah, you go for it, honey, be expressive. And apparently the violin did not survive the afternoon. So I don't know I don't know that I actually smashed it Pete Townsend style, but let's just say I was rough enough on it that it didn't have much of a life beyond that afternoon, apparently.
So then who was your mother? I mean, she was a musician?
My mom is a psychologist, and she is from a family of writers and visual artists. So I think I'm the first professional musician in my family. At least that It
sounds like it's in your genes, though. It's in your DNA. Is it just being brought out in your generation?
Definitely, there's a big love of music, and a lot of people are surprisingly good amateurs. But in terms of like really following a fully committed professional path, I think I'm the only one that I know.
I hear you. Well, you know,
family.
Clearly you have a love of classical music, you know. Who are your musical influences and who would be your guitar playing influences?
Oh, okay. Right now, so I'm currently actually getting an MFA in all my spare time in media composition and orchestration. And the last month I really cracked down on myself and said, like, I have to stop having Stravinsky be my modern influence. So the last month I've been kind of immersing myself in Steve Reich, you know, Philip Glass for some of the minimalists, Terry Riley, a little bit less so John Adams. Recently discovered Charles Ives, which is like mind blowing. Again, this is music, some of which is 100 years old and it's still insanely gorgeous. Charles Ives is, if you haven't gotten deep into Charles Ives, you start realizing why people go crazy for him once you spend some time with it. So I'm definitely trying to get my ears more attuned to what has happened in music. I think everybody knows how easy it is to love Mozart and Beethoven and Ravel and Debussy. And that's wonderful stuff. I study it, and that's where a lot of my heart was always, you know, Bach, you know, in terms of the early stuff I was learning on classical guitar. But only recently have I said, this is ridiculous. If I'm going to be composing in the 21st century, I have to know what 21st century composers today are doing and what led up to that. So I'm sort of working to fill in some of the gaps in my own knowledge. But so recently Charles Ives, Stephen Mackey, the guy who wrote the concerto, has some amazing stuff out there too. For anybody wanting to listen to Stephen Mackey, I suggest Physical Property, which you can find on YouTube, and it's him playing electric guitar with the Cronus Quartet. It's really cool.
Awesome. And how about your guitar playing influences then?
Okay, so Eric Johnson was a first, along with Joe Satriani and Steve Vai. Steve Morse very shortly thereafter, and he became kind of like one of the main biggest ones. Again, whether it's Charles Ives or Steve Morse, it's like, if you know, you know. And any other Steve Morse fan, like, we tend to be able to find each other immediately. One, because I hold my pick in a way that's very reminiscent of how Steve holds his pick. And usually Steve Morse fans can spot each other quickly, and you end up having a new best friend for the evening if you find out that you're both Steve Morse fans. Let's see, some of the more classic guitar players I got into in reverse, like Jeff Beck, who became a huge one for me. I couldn't get it by listening to the album. So as many times as my dad put like Wired and Blow by Blow in front of me, like I couldn't get into it that way. And it was when I saw him live, and I went to the show because Eric Johnson was opening for him, and I'm like, this will be cool. I'll see my hero open for his hero. So I actually flew to that show, and it was at that show that I'm like, okay, I get it. I see why everybody loves Jeff Beck, and it is, why he is this unparalleled voice of the guitar.
Yeah,
I went to every show I could. Yeah,
just a pure voice of emotion.
Yeah,
with Jeff Beck, and the way he works his guitar to express it, it's like he's really working that guitar, operating the volume knobs, the tone knobs, and I was always amazed with him not using a pick, or anybody that doesn't use a pick. I got to use a pick, but but he gets a particular tone. Again, he's one of those players that has a very unique sound.
Yeah, I mean, you can know it's him in a heartbeat, as much as he is. Boy, is he imitated, understandably so.
Yeah.
He when I saw him, I became aware of something that I'm sure musicians at some point get aware of, but it was the first time it really hit me that he played the space between the notes with as much intentionality as he played the notes. And as a guitar player, it's easy because it's a plucked instrument to put a lot more effort to the attack of a note, right? Like we're naturally focused on that. He plays the entire duration, and he shapes the entire duration, almost as if it were a bowed or a wind instrument, because he doesn't just pick it and go on to the next thing. It's like you have the sense that he is 100% present for every single moment of that note, and when it stops, and how that silence sits, which is a level of musical depth that's pretty overwhelming when you first notice it. And the reason that I don't know if I've ever made it through a Jeff Beck concert and not cried.
Yeah. It's very, very touching.
Profound.
Yeah, it is. It is a profound experience. He was really, really great that way.
Yeah.
And exactly 100%. I agree with you on that. It's like he was, like I say, so present in every single moment. That's why I say it's like just pure emotion pouring out of him at every single moment. Mm-hmm. It's amazing,
Yeah.
Which is like other guitar players want to, it's riffs and speed and flash,
Mm-hmm.
Other guitar players, it's just pure emotion.
Yeah. Pure presence. And as much as there's all sorts of different types of engaging stage presence, and his was so understated. And I think the allure was in his concentration, just in how completely unabashed he was in terms of getting the sounds out of the guitar that he was. Somehow he wasn't like a shoegazer, but he wasn't running around like putting on a show. Not, hey, I love me some Angus Young, but it's a really different type of stage presence and equally compelling. But I think at the end of the day, what ends up always translating is authenticity, and I think that Jeff had that.
I wonder how long do he play the Les Paul, and when he started to play the Fender all the time. Just wonder.
Yeah, I don't know. I always knew him. I knew, there's obviously some, what is it? Is it Blow by Blow that has the Les Paul in that drawing?
Yeah. Very famous drawing.
I only became a Jeff Beck fanatic, in the post 2010, so, he was solidly Strat at that point.
Yeah, when I saw him as well, when I was really young, he was playing the Les Paul, but I didn't get to see him until I was a bit older. And by the time I was seeing him, he was playing his Strat, And I love the electronic album that he did. Can't think of the name right now, but it's
Guitar Shop. Or?
Yeah, I think it was Guitar Shop.
Or you had it coming, or
you had it coming. Yeah, I think it might have been that too. Yeah, but it was, to me, that was a really leap forward. Just when you think guitar is kind of passing away or whatnot, or what's this old time classic rocker going to do next, and yet he went forward with it, like light years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
I love that stuff. Actually, that was easier for me to get into, probably because it's like, I think some stuff you just, it's different if you're there for it. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you were not somebody who was watching Hendrix rewrite the rules of electric guitar, you're never going to experience it the same way as somebody who just got their mind blown for the first time. When somebody's influence, whether it's Eddie Van Halen or Jimi Hendrix, has been so pervasive that it just starts to sound like guitar playing because you can't go back and know what it was like before them, right? You're born into a world where everybody sounds like Eddie Van Halen. It took me a while to understand why Eddie Van Halen had something extra special, and I think that, for sure, whether it's Hendrix or Eddie Van Halen or Jeff Beck, that kind of widespread influence can almost diminish the impact of somebody who's just coming to it. And for me, my entry point was more like the later albums, because it's like my ears wanted the production value of something like You Had It Coming or Who Else. Even Guitar Shop sounded pretty cool, but like There and Back, which was a really cool album, it just didn't, my ears weren't accepting the sound. It didn't sound old and cool like a Django Reinhardt. It just sounded kind of like not great production. And it was seeing it live that made me really appreciate what was going on musically.
Yeah, totally understand. Well, we're coming up to the end of the show. It's just time for maybe just a couple more here if we can get them in. You got time, Gretchen, for a couple more?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I have one.
Okay, fire away, Claudio.
I have one question.
Sure. Well, go ahead.
Do you ever broke a string?
Oh, have I ever broke a string?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, what do you think I'm doing here? Like I pick up the guitar once a week sometimes. I mean, you play. I do use 10 through 52s, so it's not like they're snapping all the time. They snap
when you're bending, or they snap when you're playing?
I don't break them that frequently, fortunately. I mean, I know people like, what is it, Angus and Malcolm Young break strings. Like, at Dick Dale, if he didn't break a string at a show, it like wasn't a show. Like if you would see a Dick Dale show and he didn't, it's like you could tell it at some point he's like, I'm trying to break a string. I've been lucky. I've only had string breaks in times that I didn't have to totally, like, it didn't stop any part of the show. One time was at the very last hit of a chord right before we were going to take a break. And I'm like, well, thank you, gods of broken strings. This is the perfect time for me to change my strings. The other time was in the bow solo of Dazed and Confused. And so what I had to do, it was in the bow solo. I was able to get through the rest of the solo, but you remember how that goes, right? The solo ends, and then you have da 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 da, and then there's that whole other guitar solo, right? So I had to very quickly put down my main Les Paul, get my Les Paul that's tuned to Dadgad for Kashmir, quickly get it in standard tuning, and I think I only required one extra cycle of the da 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 before I was able to come in on the solo. So I was like, okay, again, that was that one made me sweat a little bit, but we got through it.
I always ask that question to guitar players.
Yeah. Well, some people break strings more freely.
Yeah.
I'm sure it has to do with how heavy-handed you are, or the gauge of strings you're using.
I asked Michael Schenker. He said he never break a string for some reason.
Never in his life? I don't believe that.
That's what he said to me.
I'm sure everyone did. Somebody, I didn't break strings all that often, but now and again, and like you say, you always had learn to have a backup guitar because you got to be able to switch really quick and have it be in tune.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I never break a string.
Yeah, good for you.
The guy, I just mention it real quick here, in case maybe you enjoy their music. The guy that surprised me that he never really breaks strings, I never saw him break a string, and people asked him, do you break strings? And he always said, no, I really don't, is Trevor Rabin, because he uses eights.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. He said he uses eights. I got to believe him. It's like, I can't believe he uses eights, because it's so light that's such a light
Right.
gauge that you can blow on the string and it'll break, you know?
Right. Well, I think doesn't Yngwie use eights and like Billy Gibbons too?
I don't know. I don't know anybody that uses eights except Trevor Rabin, you know, and it's
Well, okay,
pretty
I'll
incredible.
have to look that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I tried eights. And I was like, well, if Trevor uses eights, let me get eights. No, I can't use eights. You know,
I create a monster.
But that's just amazing because he's such a player. Did you ever listen to Trevor Rabin's work? He's
Not
the
that
guitar
much. I
player
mean,
with Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that much. I mean, I'm certainly familiar with the name, and obviously he's got, you know, quite a very clearly wonderful reputation.
Yeah, he's you may or may not know he comes from a family of orchestral musicians, and so he left Yes essentially to be doing film scoring. So that's
Where I think I know him mostly from is from film scores, right?
yeah, and he's terrific. He's you know, all that musicality is in him, and I love his scores. You know, they're great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I noticed, Gretchen, that you have some guitar lesson videos available on your website.
Yeah.
Do you have a whole guitar teaching program? And do you teach any students privately?
I really don't have time for private students. Not because I don't enjoy doing it, but just there's only so many hours in the day, and often I'm gone for, you know, long periods of time. So sometimes I'll do things when I can, but what I ended up doing is I do have a course with True Fire and Jam Play. It's on like basically different techniques, but for creative purposes. You know, so even though if I talk about like, you know, tapping or sweep picking, the idea is to try to use them to expand your creative palette rather than as a substitute, you know. So not to write music that's technique forward, but to allow a technique to give you a wider musical vocabulary. So I have a course on that. And then I have a book that was published by Hal Leonard called I think it's called The Way Music Works. I didn't title it, but it's basically music theory for guitar players, which I know is one of those things that usually when you say that, like it clears the room because guitar players are like, I don't know who started it. Somehow I've been left out of it, maybe because of my classical early beginnings, but the number of guitar players that are just like positively allergic to, forget about like, I don't mean like Schenkerian analysis or like deep, incredibly geeky stuff, but even just knowing basics of like terminology or God forbid what the notes on the fretboard are, you know, or how to build triads or, you know, like what does it mean to add a 9 to a chord, you know, something like that, where it's just like, it's not rocket science. It is, to me, it's just the number of guitar players who seem to have such a bad association with music theory just makes me think it's been taught very badly and that it's been gate kept in a way that makes people have a really backwards idea about what I think it is, you know. And so my argument is always like, it's like wanting to be a writer but not reading any books. Like, you know, this isn't going to tell you what to do. It's just going to give you a vocabulary that allows you to communicate your ideas most clearly with other musicians. Your brain's going to conceptualize it some way, so why not have it be in a way that's actually useful and translatable? So I have a book on music theory about that, and then I have various YouTube videos that I did, some with Zepparella for a thing called the Zepparella Learning Channel, where we don't just teach how to play Kashmir or whatever, but each of us teach our entire part, not just here's how I play it, but here's the rig, or here's how I'm running my effects. Here's what I have to think about playing it live, which is something we've noticed a lot of, is that sometimes people will come and sit in with us and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know Kashmir. And I'm like, but do you? But do you really? But do you really? They swear they do. And then we get to it, and sure enough, what they know is the riffs, but they don't know the structure. And a lot of times those will be things that then we'll cover in the videos of like, okay, this is what, here's how it goes. Here's how I make it sound the way, or here's my settings for when I'm doing with different effects. Here's when they're going on and off. And here's how it comes together live. Here's the moment I got to look at Clementine for that cue. Here's that moment that my vocalist has that Anna has a super long note, and it's easy for her to lose the one. And so I'm looking at her to make sure when she holds out that note for way too long, that when she's taking a big deep breath in, that I'm giving her a really clear one. Little things that, a baby band might not think about and maybe could help somebody if they were going to be playing the music live. And then I have stuff that's just like how to play Going to California, or my arrangement of Going to California, or the Pink Floyd tune, Is There Anybody Out There? Different fingerstyle things that I did as sort of a partnership with Breedlove Guitars. So different things here and there when I can.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, I really just have one more left, but I'm going to sneak in a quick one.
Okay.
And since you're doing Zepparella, for quite a bit of time, and all that time, did you ever actually get to meet Jimmy Page?
No, I haven't met Jimmy Page.
I
But
did.
you know what? Really? I just feel like it's lovely. I've been lucky that the heroes of mine I've met have been without fail wonderful. And I don't have any reason to believe Jimmy's anything other than wonderful. But at the same time, I'm also fine. Like his music has enriched my life so much. Like I don't need to take up minutes of his life to be like, hi, like it's great. Like if I get to meet him at some point, it'll be wonderful. But I'm not like stalking him to be like, hi, you got to meet me because I learned a lot of your songs.
Yeah, no, actually, I was
met
thinking.
him at a private party.
I was thinking.
Sorry, I wanted to start.
Yeah, go ahead, Claudio.
No, I met him by accident because they invited me to this private party. They play in Montreal. There was the Page Plant tour. So there was like a private party at this place that the owner is my friend. He's like, hey, come in. So I come in and he was there with Robert Plant. And that's how that happens, just
Wow.
I said hi.
So cool. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I did meet Robert Plant, and it was kind of like that. I mean, he was really nice, but it's like, I don't know, like you go and you shake somebody's hand, you're like, okay, well, that was really for me, like, and at the end of the day, it's fine. Like, I've never felt a need to meet people just to check it off a list. Like if I get to meet him and, we get to have a
Yeah, it
chat
happens.
about something, that'll be super fun. Yeah.
They're normal people actually. They're totally nice.
Yeah, I was thinking it might happen more in reverse. It'd be like, I'm sure he's well aware of Zepparella. Yeah, I mean, because this band's been playing Led Zeppelin music for 20 years. I mean,
For longer, I think, than Led Zeppelin did it, which is kind of, again, depressing. I don't know.
Yeah, you've been playing Led Zeppelin music longer than Led Zeppelin ever existed, And but if I was Jimmy Page, I'd be thinking, I gotta come around and see one of their shows, go up and say hello, So that's how I would think of it.
It can be arranged,
I try to play every show with the dedication like he might be there, knowing that like that may never happen, but I feel like isn't that a good thing to try to give to audiences, is play like Jimmy might be there.
I'm sure Jason told him many times about you guys, right? Jason loved your band for sure. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's very kind. I mean,
Yeah, you must be mentioning Jason Bonham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably Mr. Jimmy, whatever his name is.
oh, he's amazing. Yeah.
He's a Japanese Jimmy.
Yeah.
Well,
You look like him.
then the last thing I wanted to ask you, Gretchen, would be we're definitely at kind of a crossover point in history, although it's kind of a slow crossover, from amps to amp modeling and multiprocessors. So have you tried some of the amp modeling multiprocessors like the Kemper Neural DSP Quad Cortex or the Fractal systems, and what do you think?
Yeah, I have a Quad Cortex. I did that. It was sort of a collaboration with Sweetwater, and I've used their plugins. I really like their Archetype Pliny, and I use that a lot for like if I'm just doing like a video for Instagram, or I've done it like for like guest solos. It's great. They have really, really great sounds. For live, I still always prefer the interaction between pickups and speakers, and the way I play is based on the way the whole thing sounds and reacts, and part of that is what I love about playing tube amps and with the way that I have things set up is they're really responsive, meaning I can, in Zepparella, say for example, I have one amp sound that I'm using the whole time. Everything else and any cleaning up, that's volume knob and my touch. You roll the volume knob down to like 4 or 3 go to the neck pickup, and and you lighten your touch, you have a totally, maybe not crystal clear sound, but it's clear enough that you're playing what is and what should never be, you know, nice and kind of clean, or the acoustic part of Ramble On, right? And then just with the flick of if your pickup switch and digging in harder, and now you're like, you know, got the nice crunch. I like that, about tube amps and everything. You still have this continuity of tone, but with different levels of kind of like growl you can get from it.
Gotcha.
Of course, there's something wonderful and portable and easy about stuff you can do with like the quad cortex. Like if I had to there are definitely types of gigs that's what I would bring. But I still love my tube amps. And you know what? Not all of them have to be like 100 watts and 1,000,000 pounds. My current one that I'm using for my trio, it's the Steve Morse Signature, the Engel. It's a 20-watt amp. It's like, you know, this big. I think it's like under 20 pounds, fits in my checked luggage, and it's tubes, and it sounds amazing. So
Great. There you go.
But I have not tried Kemper. I haven't tried, maybe I tried Fractal once. What I don't like is programming. I don't like menus and submenus and sub menus and, you know, just too many parameters. It's like, I feel like we all have our level of patience and what we can geek out on. I'll geek out on orchestration and counterpoint and harmony and all that stuff, but put too many like submenus in front of me and I'm like, get it away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha.
You can waste your life looking for the sound.
Exactly. If it doesn't sound pretty good right away, I'll just move on to something that doesn't require
from what I understand of all those processors, then you're definitely in the right one, the quad cortex, and stick with neural.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. They've been really good. They sold me on, you know, any sort of plugins that I've been using in Logic. Those are the first ones that I'm like, oh, this is sounding pretty good. So yeah, that's why when I was like, okay, I probably should get something, you know, for kind of more corporate-y or fly-in, one-off kind of gigs, I was like, I will do the Neural DSP. I know the Quad Cortex has a great, great reputation.
Absolutely.
And it sounds
Gretchen,
great. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Gretchen, that brings us to the end of our time, end of the show. What websites should people go to keep in touch with you and your career?
It's pretty easy. GretchenMenn.com, and the spelling of my last name is MENN. I can say that all my handles on social are just at Gretchen Menn, and there are so many more fake accounts than you would think I would have. So I just always tell people I don't DM. I don't even see my direct messages. I do have a Patreon page where I think at the very most minimum, like $1 a month, I have group Zooms once a month. So like for people, if they had burning questions, it's like, okay, you can give Patreon $1 and come and hang out for 40 minutes on Zoom. So
yeah.
But I'm never emailing or asking anybody for money or favors. So
yeah, it's such a shame that you have to do that. But yeah, virtually everyone I speak with have all said the same thing. It's like, you know, guys, I will not.
Okay, good. It's
DM
not just
you.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. There's just so many fake accounts out there.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're trying to
There
get.
was somebody selling t-shirts online.
Yeah.
Money. Apparently one person was scammed to the tune of, let's just say, a very painful amount of money because I reached out saying that my husband and I were getting divorced and I needed money for the divorce and all of it was this whole thing. Apparently it was like months of this person like fooling and manipulating this other person who was just, you know, somebody from a different country who was going through a hard time and was vulnerable to, you know, a scam, which is so horrendous to think that people would do.
Yeah, there was somebody on Facebook that was selling t-shirts.
Oh yeah. Apparently that too. My God.
Just amazing.
You know, because musicians just have so much money, like to.
I know.
Like, oh man. Well,
Gretchen,
stay safe out there, everyone.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Gretchen, thanks for being our guest today on the Rock Music Alliance.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks so much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure to talk with you both.
I'm Cole Coleman. And for Claudio Pesavento, the Rock Music Alliance, and the RMA Awards, thanks for watching and listening. Visit us at rockmusicalliance.com and check out this year's RMA Awards for rock, metal, and progressive rock music.